Welcome back to the Golden State Warriors Hoop Podcast Channel, Episode 1. Got a special guest joining us, Scotty. He got his own podcast thing going on. Pretty great guy. His knowledge on the game is very good. So I will leave his link to his YouTube channel, things like that, in the description. So what's good? Welcome to the show, man.
Hey man, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate it. I know we're gonna talk some miserable Sixers today, but no, I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to help out any way I can, and I hope to get you on my show one day as well, man. Talk
Oh
some
yeah, for
Warriors
sure,
with
yeah.
you. So, likewise, man. I know you into the hoop scene as well, so I'm happy to give my intel that I carry with me as well, and we can break it down, man.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, we definitely gonna make that happen though.
Absolutely.
So let's get right into it. Growing up, what made you like? Was you a Sixer fan growing up, or what made you fall in love with the game in general?
Yeah, so growing up, man, I was always like a big football fan. That was like my favorite sport to watch.
Yeah,
So picked up on Philly sports. I fell in love with the Philadelphia Eagles. Then you hover over. I came up during like the Donovan McNabb, Brian Dawkins era, which also means I came up during the Allen Iverson era. So like that was easy to fall in love with. There's people that aren't Sixers fans that love AI. You got the
oh
flag up
yeah,
behind you, man, and it just speaks to what AI did. He changed the game of basketball as a whole. He changed the league. And to that point, I fell in love with the Sixers and the team that he was playing with at the time. Went through some dismal years where I kind of had to separate myself from the Sixers. Like the process was not fun, right? Like losing game after game, right? Season after season, just trying to get draft picks was not fun as a fan. So during that time, it allowed me to kind of go and look at the rest of the league and admire what's going on around the rest of the league. And then from there, I grew like a greater appreciation of the league as a whole, which is why I do like a full on NBA show rather than just the Sixers, because I do like to tap into these other teams as well. As far as basketball, just basketball in general, man. I started playing basketball in around fifth grade, fell in love with it, like lived in the gym playing basketball all the way up through high school, went to states with my high school team in Maryland, and ended up going to college at Hood College in Frederick, Maryland, and playing basketball there. So hooping is like what I love. Like I love watching football. That's how I fell in love with sports. But as far as playing and like actually getting into the gym, I love playing basketball the most out of any sport, which is why I'm so inclined to love the NBA. But no, I appreciate you asking, man.
yeah, yeah. Like you said, AI. Yeah, everybody love AI. Growing up, I
Yeah,
wanted to have I want to have braids like him. Like AI just revolutionized the game. Everybody wanted to be like AI. You didn't have to be like a Sixers fan. Like everybody just wanted to be like him. So
yeah,
his impact,
yeah.
his impact was felt for sure. So yeah,
Relatable, man. Relatable.
yeah,
That's the biggest thing with AI. Like growing up, let's be honest, as African American children, right? Like looking up to a star that's not afraid to express himself on the biggest stage, tattoos, cornrows,
right.
headbands, jewelry. Like when you see that, it gives you confidence, like that you can be yourself as well and play the
Yeah, for
game. So
sure. Yeah,
that's what made me fall in love with him specifically, man. I definitely feel you there.
yeah. So moving on, what are your thoughts on the Harden situation? Like 2, 3 weeks in since he said that Daryl Morey is a liar. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the situation at hand? Like overall, like how you feel about him and Daryl Morey and things like that.
Yeah, man, we've interacted on Twitter about this a couple of times,
Yeah,
and I try not to disrespect Harden just because he is a human, right? We are all humans. He's a hooper. Like I respect his game. I respect what he's done in his career. But man, this is ridiculous, right? Like this is how many teams and how many years that he's forcing himself off of. And mind you, from the Philadelphia perspective, we have a low tolerance for that right now because we just dealt with Ben Simmons. So
right,
when you see
exactly.
Sixers fans, overreacting or calling him names or just completely upset about this situation, it's frustrating dealing with your 6'10" all-star point guard demanding out of the city, off of the team, and then he gets traded and you trade for another all-star point guard, top 75 player in James Harden, And after the first season with us, right, he goes into the offseason, he signs that option or that 2-year option contract where he took less than the max deal. He took like 35 million, cut us a break, right? He tells us he loves Philadelphia, but then switches it all the way up this offseason, and all of a sudden he doesn't care about Philadelphia. He doesn't care about the Sixers. He don't care about Embiid, who he gave a watch to after he won his MVP. Like, it's just so like fraudulent to me, man. Like, that's the word I like to use for James Harden, because like, what are you looking to do? What are you looking for? Because the money is not there for you. You could have opted into free agency and went out and tried to get the money that you're looking for. It obviously wasn't there. There's no teams knocking on the Sixers' door to trade for him. The Clippers even backed out, and he specifically requested them. Yeah. And so then you have this updated report by Rachel Nichols that he wants to be a number one, bro. Like, you want to be a number one, but you want to go to the LA Clippers and be a number 3. That doesn't make sense. He's a number 2 on the Sixers right now behind Embiid, right? But the other thing, man, when you look at what he did in the playoffs, like I said, I try not to disrespect Harden because I want to trade him. So, like, I don't want people to think that he's worthless. Like, he's not. He led the league in assists last year. He's a good player. Yeah, but you want to be a number one, bro. He shot 16 for 63 in games 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 against the Boston Celtics. That comes out to a 25.4% shooting clip from the field. That's not 3-point shooting. That's just from the field. 25% in the playoffs in the second round on games outside of games 1 and 4 where he scored over 40, right? So you want to be a number one, but that's your floor. You can't be a number one. Like, your floor is that, like, that you can't be a number one. So I think he's just delusional, and that's where I'm at with him. I respect him as an all-time player, but got to get him off my team, man.
Yeah. With James, like you say, he is confusing. Like, you don't know what he wants. Like, you go back to the Knicks, like, they offered him a max, I think, and he didn't sign it. So it's like, okay, well, what direction he want to go in?
Where do you want to be?
Like, do you want to win? Do you want to compete? Then you seen the rumors come out him going back to Houston, and it's kind of like confusing. Like, what do you want to do? Like, do you ultimately you say you want to win a championship, but your actions don't show it though. Like,
exactly.
If you go back to the Sixers lost against the Celtics in how many games?
7 game series.
So we go back to that game 7. I actually tuned into that game, and James, to me, I felt like he actually quit. I felt like he didn't give in like how he normally could or would, and I didn't like how Joel kind of like threw shots at his teammates in the press conference. Yeah. He was like, you know, him and James need help in so many ways.
Yeah,
but I was like, well, both of y'all didn't play well.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like when you look at a guy like Jokic, you know, he elevating his teammates. He ain't just, you know, bringing them down. Like, he elevating those guys so they can get paid. Look at a Bruce Brown. Man just got paid. You know, Jokic elevated those guys' game. So, yeah, with Harden, like you say, he is a damn good player, but ultimately I don't just see him winning a championship, at least with the mindset he have. Like, it's just all over the place.
So, that's the thing, the mindset, man, because when you look at this Sixers roster, like you mentioned Joel Embiid in his comments after Game 7. Yeah, I don't like those either. I don't like his mindset. But the difference between Joel and James Harden in Philadelphia, one, Joel has been here through the process. He is the process. So, like, we are invested in Joel. We love Joel. He's been here forever. He's our MVP, like, so on and so forth. But he's also under contract for the next 3 to 4 years, like guaranteed money, no trade. There's like no trade requests that can be put through. Like, he has to play for us. So, like, it's different than James Harden, who had the option to leave this offseason and the animosity towards him. But my biggest thing with James Harden and Joel Embiid is that they both have that mindset where they shrink in the biggest moments. And you can't have two players leading your team like that. What the best thing for the Sixers right now is to hope that Tyrese Maxey can turn into a guy that can show up in those big moments, because they don't have, even with Harden on the roster, they don't have anyone that does that right now. And that's a shot at Embiid. I have to hold him accountable as the MVP. He did not play like an MVP in the playoffs either.
Yeah, he didn't. But, you know, I give James a lot of credit. You know, he changed his game for the better of his career, you know, switching over from the 2 to the 1. Like you
Yeah.
said, he led the league in assists last season. So, like, this is no knock on him. James is still like one hell of a player. He bring a lot
Yeah.
to the table, but it just like when it matters the most, he hasn't really shown up. And you said the
Yeah.
same thing with Joel. And,
You use that term
I like,
quit, man. That's what I
yeah,
saw too. I saw him quit out there on the floor in game 7. That's just it can't happen.
yeah. And I like Max. I feel like he can bring a lot to this team this season. And he can have a big season. Same thing with Tobias. I feel like he gets a lot of slander as well, but
He does.
Tobias takes a backseat a lot of those times. He just let those guys do their thing. So yeah, but that was that. Moving on, do you think the Sixers get a trade done before training camp?
So I'll answer this in 2 parts. So I think they should get a trade done before training camp. I think they should hit up the LA Clippers, see what you can get. If they're not offering Terrence Mann, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, if Harden doesn't feel valued by the Sixers, if the Clippers won't offer Terrence Mann for you, then how do you feel valued by the Clippers? That's a whole separate question. But I would reach out to the Clippers, see what they're offering, like a Nick Batum, a Robert Covington,
Yeah,
something
Norman.
like that, mixed with like Marcus Morris, Norman Powell, something like that in return, and just take it. Get this guy off the team because we don't need any more toxic, toxic chemistry on this team, toxic players, toxic anything on this team. They've dealt with enough, and you don't want to get to the point where Embiid tries to force his way out.
Yeah.
So I would say get a trade done by training camp. Do I think Daryl Morey, his stubborn, hard-headed ass, is going to get it done? Nah, I don't think that he's going to get it done because he still values Harden. I think that's the confusion. Like, he values Harden. He wants Harden to return. But he's not just accepting some mediocre deal with a bunch of role players for James Harden, who is a top 75 player who led the league in assists last year. I would imagine what he's asking for from the Clippers, Paul George. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I know that's not realistic that Paul George would even want to leave the Clippers or come to Philly, or that we should even they should be trading him for James Harden. I don't think that that's the case, but I know that that's probably what Daryl Morey is asking for.
Yeah, to your point, Daryl Morey not just going to trade him for just anybody. That's the
Exactly.
advantage an owner or a GM have is that you can request a trade, but I'm not just going to trade you for to this particular team if they don't have the good assets to give me something in return back. It's the same thing with the Blazers. Dame,
Yeah,
he want to go to the Heat, but obviously they don't have the assets that the Trailblazers are looking for. So that's why we
yeah,
haven't seen a deal get done yet. So who knows how long that's going to take. But
yeah. That
like you
is
said,
crazy.
Daryl Morey, he got Harden in the handcuffs right now, so he has the advantage as far as when he can be able to deal him or not. But like you said, you definitely want to keep Joel happy from the sense of you look at Giannis, right? He came out like a week ago. He made some comments about, not about the contract extension or whatnot, and he got to basically see if they still gonna be contending, and
Yeah,
what players they put around him and things of that nature. So yeah, you definitely want to keep your franchise player happy no matter the
yeah.
situation at hand. So yeah, you made some key points on there. Overall, thus far with the Sixers all season, what would you rate it given everything that has transpired thus far?
That's a good question. Because what I'm thinking about here is like Daryl Morey's kind of handcuffed too, right? Like you said James
Oh
Harden
yeah,
is handcuffed. Correct. Daryl Morey is kind of handcuffed here as well, with Harden demanding a trade to just the Clippers and, making it known that he's not going to play, calling Daryl Morey a liar. I mean, that's going to make it hard for Daryl Morey to trade you. It's not going to make it easier for him to trade you. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I do think he's a little handcuffed as far as he needs to move James Harden before he can do kind of anything else with this team. We just don't know what we're working with. And he is looking at next offseason to have those 2 max slots opened up so we can go out and get whoever we want out of free agency. So I know that's part of the thinking. But they brought in Patrick Beverly. They brought back Montrezl Harrell. They brought in Mo Bamba, which I like Mo Bamba. I like Patrick Beverly additions, but they still haven't addressed the wings. And that's my problem, right? I like Tobias Harris. I think he can be solid with James exiting and him having the ball in his hands a little bit more. But you still need to address that wing because PJ Tucker, he can't start on this team without James Harden. Like, PJ Tucker is only a positive on the Sixers if James Harden is in that starting lineup, able to get him open looks, right? We talked about Harden leading the league in assists. He makes the game easier for other guys. And without that type of presence in the Sixers starting lineup, I just see no use for PJ Tucker in reality. So I feel like with James Harden, you got to move both of those guys. That's a lot of money on your books. You got to move them together in my eyes. But overall, I would give them a C minus, maybe a D plus for the offseason so far. Because there's guys out there, man, like Kelly Oubre, which he's not this great player. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But he's a wing that averaged 20 points per game last year, and we don't have any wing that has done that. So when I look at things like that, just go out there and make an offer to this guy, see what he's looking for, and get him on the roster. The decision to not move Tobias Harris, I don't know what offers were on the table for a guy like that. I know there's a certain line where the value, you don't want to give him up for nothing because he can still contribute to this team. Yeah. But I think moving Tobias Harris off this team would have been a plus, depending on what you get back. So I will give them a C just because their hands are tied. They can't do much. But they have kind of made the most of it in the same sense by going out and getting like a veteran minimum Patrick Beverly, going out and getting a veteran minimum in Mo Bamba, and then also bringing in Nick Nurse. I did like the Nick Nurse head coaching hire as well.
Nurse is a hell of a coach.
Yeah, I like him. So C plus, C minus, I would give him. Yeah.
Starting with Tobias, was it like 2 or 3 seasons ago, the 2021 season? In my opinion, he should have definitely been an all-star. Like he was balling. I was tuning into those games. I was like, man, Tobias getting after it on defense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he was locking up AD, but he was getting after it. I was like, okay, Tobias. And I think it was on like 50, 40, 90 or close. It was something like
that was the season. Yeah, that was his best season, man. He was approaching like 20 to 21 points per game, had the ball in his hands a lot. I think it was honestly the year where maybe it was the year before Ben Simmons held out. I'm trying to think, but yeah, it was his best season. He did shoot 50, 40, 90, that upper class percentages of true shooting, right? Yeah. So yeah, Tobias, he's so interesting, man, because he does get slandered a lot in Philly.
Yeah, he definitely does.
It's just the contract, though. It's not his play. Like, if his contract was lower, he would be a great player for us, right? But it's when you're getting paid max money and you're not a max player, that's when you're going to have gripes from the fan base anytime he has a subpar game. Mind you, he has disappeared in the playoffs. I think in that game 6. So you mentioned game 7. It looked like Harden quit. Game 6 was the game where Embiid couldn't get the ball in the post. This was a closeout game. The Sixers were up 3-2 at this point in Philly. Closeout game in Philly. Embiid doesn't touch the ball in the last 10 minutes, whether that's his fault or the rest of the team. Tobias Harris finishes that game with 2 points, man. 2 points from a $37 million man. He makes more than James Harden, and we got 2 points from that man. So that's the problem, right? He's a little underrated at this point just because of all that slander and the occasional subpar game. But he is one of our best defenders. I like that you mentioned that, him getting after it on the defensive end. He is one of our best wing to power forward type of defenders on the team for sure.
Yeah. Y'all traded for, was it Jaden McDaniels last trade deadline?
Yeah, so the brother, Jalen McDaniels.
The brother.
Jaden McDaniels is the better one. He's on Minnesota. Yeah, he's the better brother. It's his twin brother, Jalen McDaniels from the Hornets, which I still am high on him. But that's who you're talking about there.
Yeah. So he ended up going to Toronto, right?
Yeah, he ended up signing a contract with Toronto. I think he got like $4 or $5 million a year. It was not something that we should have let him go for.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, to your point about the wing depth with PJ Tucker, there's no doubt he ran with Harden. I seen him post on his Instagram like a picture of them when he came out and said Darren Moore was a liar. So I was like,
yeah.
So I was like, he's still riding with his boy. So they like a package deal at this point. So
that's what it feels like.
Yeah, they may have to get rid of the both of them, honestly, at this point. So
yeah, and to your point about Jalen McDaniels, man, it just doesn't make sense. And that is one detractor I'll note on Daryl Morey's resume for me, because you go out, you trade Matisse Thybulle midseason for Jalen
Man,
McDaniels, who was averaging 13 points per game on the Hornets, right? He
yeah,
comes to
yeah,
Philly, doesn't really get an opportunity. A lot of that's on Doc Rivers, I will say. But to not bring him back at such a low cap hit is just ridiculous to me. He's exactly what the Sixers need when you talk about length and athleticism at the wing spot. It's frustrating to see him walk out the door.
yeah, for sure. He was coming into his own. I think the second half, well, right before y'all traded for him, he was coming into his
Yeah,
own. So, yeah.
yeah,
I love the addition of Pat Bev. OG. Got
yeah,
that dog mentality, defender, and things like that. And y'all still got Deadney Melton. I like him. And then
yeah.
y'all also re-signed Paul Reed. So that's
Love
huge.
him. Yeah,
I feel like this should be his season to break out.
yeah,
Hopefully, Nick Nurse experiment some things as far as like maybe
yeah.
starting him over PJ, things like that. So yeah, but
I'm
I
glad you
like.
called that out. I'm glad you called that out, because that's exactly what I'm thinking this season. Even if PJ's on the team, I want Paul Reed starting at the 4. I've seen videos of him shooting this offseason, working out, working on the 3-point shot. That's exactly what Embiid needs, though. Like somebody that's going to go and just do all the hustle stuff at the 4 spot,
Yeah,
right? Go crash the boards, get putbacks, dunks, and then play defense with tenacity. That's exactly what they need. So yeah, I agree with you there. Throw him in the starting lineup. I wanted to ask you, did you catch that the latest? I don't know if you watch Gilbert Arenas' podcast.
oh yeah, man. I've been watching it, man. I've been watching it.
That
I,
last episode with Pat Bev was hilarious, man.
yeah, I was in tears. I cannot make this up, man. I was killing myself laughing, man. That
Oh
was
my
just so
god.
funny. Like I was like, man, it's just
Him
one
and
of those
Rashad
heated moments. It's
McCants.
like, man, yeah, he's something else, Rashad, man. He truly is, man. He's something else.
He's a funny dude. He's so delusional, but he's a funny dude, man. It just takes me back
Yeah,
to like back in the day when I was like really into the hoop and seeing myself, and like just arguing with my friends about who's better and like our
yeah,
accolades and like what we did in life when it comes to hooping. So it really took me back with that. But no, that podcast is funny. But I love Pat Bev's mindset is what I'm getting at. He showed his mentality on that show. And if you listen to his podcast, he shares a lot as well. He's a quality guy to have on the roster for sure.
yeah, for sure. Like growing up, I'm not going to sit up here and say I love Pat Bev growing up. We had
As a
differences
Warriors fan,
against the Warriors, yeah. Like, but ultimately, as I grew up, I was like, man, I'm starting to respect the hell out of this man. I see like
he
he the
works.
type, he one of those guys who you would love to play with, but hate to play against.
Yeah,
And I see why. Like he was
yeah,
giving us problems. Like the man had like 21 rebounds. I think back in 2019 when KD was still on the team, they took us to
yeah,
6 games. Like I was
yeah.
like, we
He
let
gives
Pat
you
Bev get 21 rebounds.
he
Like
gives you like Draymond vibes, but on a much lesser extent, right? He's not nearly the caliber player as Draymond, but he brings that similar personality of toughness, right? That just willing to do whatever
yeah,
it takes to win. So yeah, you love adding that to a team with Embiid, man. That is my biggest thing with that dude. Being willing to do whatever it takes. He needs guys around him that can show that to him, because I just feel like he has not been doing that, man.
yeah. That's something that they were also talking about on Gil's Arenas is that he might as well be 6'5" because he shoots so many threes instead of like posting up. And they do make a valid point to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Like Joel can get kind of carried away, settling for jump shots.
Yep.
Dang on well, can't nobody stop him. They got to send a double. He invites it in, so just
Yep.
make a play. But to your point, you have to put those right group of guys around him to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And with a guy like Pat Bev, I respect him. He been the same guy when he first came into the league, and he still is that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
give him a
I
lot of
agree
credit.
there. No,
And with,
your point about Embiid, man, the 6'5", that's the most frustrating thing. And to what you said after that is like, you don't want to erase what he is, like the skill set that he has. Like he can shoot the rock, like he can shoot the ball, like
he
he's
can shoot.
good at it. But like in those big moments of the game where you need a bucket, you go in one-on-one with Al Horford, right? Boston's not even bringing a double because they trust Al Horford to guard Embiid, because Simply, I believe that the Boston Celtics trust that Embiid will fold and turn into a little guy in the big moment. And that's exactly what Gilbert Arenas and all those guys are speaking to. This man may as well be 6'5", because if you're going to get into the last 2 minutes of the game and we need a bucket, like there's no way around it. We need a bucket from our MVP.
Yes.
And you're going to go to the post, right? Or the top of the free throw line, the top of the key. And you're going to, start backing down Horford and then take a step back fadeaway mid-range jumper. When we need a bucket, you're 7'2". You're 7'2", 280 to 300 pounds. Take that man to the post. You're taller, you're bigger than him, and dunk on him. Like, it's the Shaq thing, right? We grow up watching Shaq. So maybe it clouds my perception a little bit, but Embiid can do a little bit. We see Jokic do it. When Denver Nuggets need a bucket from Jokic, he goes straight down to the post. You'll see some hook action, whatever the case may be. He uses his body to his advantage, and that's something that Embiid doesn't. So when I say that Embiid shrinks in the big moment, I'm not just using like a metaphor there. Like, it's not an analogy. He literally turns into a 6'5" guard when it's time to score the basketball, and that just doesn't work, man. He's got to change the mindset.
Yeah, to your point, I was just about to mention Jokic. Like, you go back to the finals, Jokic is, he's a pass first, no doubt about it.
Against the Miami Heat.
Yeah, but when they need a bucket, Jokic is going to get them a bucket against a very elite defender and Bam out of the bayou.
Exactly.
So with Horford, is he like 36, 37?
Yeah, he's old as hell.
With
all due respect.
Yeah, with all due respect, he's still, he a pretty good defender. But Joel, you was the MVP. You should honestly take this as a disrespect that y'all got Al Horford guarding me. You know, so I gotta go get a bucket. No doubt about it.
He looks like little brother all the time. Like, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Al Horford comes with a lot of experience, a lot of defensive mechanisms that work in today's game, but like, nah, like, I'm not accepting that. Like, I'm not accepting Embiid getting shut down in the big moment of game 6 and 7 by Al Horford. Like, that doesn't work for me. So yeah, to your point, man, like, Al Horford is a good player. He's been a good player for a long time, but nah, I can't accept that.
Then you just got rewarded the MVP. So yeah. But also, before we move off this topic, with the Paul Reed and the PJ Tucker, like, this is no knock on PJ. He's still, he brings a lot to y'all team, but I feel like Paul can bring just a little bit more, from an athleticism standpoint, being able to run the floor, actually being a threat. Like with PJ, no doubt he a corner three, he can shoot the ball, but it's like, what else do he bring? He a thin defender, he can shoot the ball. Where is it opposed to a Paul Reed, maybe a little dribble handoff, mid-range game, getting a mismatch, setting the screen, sealing the guy under the rim, just being a threat. Guys don't view PJ Tucker as a threat. He can shoot it, don't get me wrong, but he's not an actual offensive threat. So, I would love to see Paul Reed, get into that starting lineup. It may be time for that. How long has he been in the league? Like 3, 4
years now? And mind you, his first year or two in the league, he was getting G League MVP. So he's got game, you know what I mean? He can play in the big leagues. We just got to find the role to put him in. And I think starting beside Embiid is that role, because he does a lot of the things that Embiid doesn't do well. Like, Embiid, he can rebound the ball when he wants to, but he just doesn't. He's not a great rebounder. He's not Nikola Jokic when it comes to rebounding. He's not a playmaker like Nikola Jokic, right? So I think Paul Reed can like counteract a lot of what Embiid lacks at as well. And to your point about PJ, there was times, in the postseason where the Boston Celtics, like you said, you have Robert Williams out there with Al Horford. Al Horford's guarding Embiid directly. You have Robert Williams helping off of PJ Tucker. What the hell is Embiid supposed to do, right? Like, and then you can pass it out to PJ Tucker, but like, you get to the end of the game and you want PJ Tucker taking the three that your team is relying on. Like, he's a decent shooter from the corner. He's a corner specialist, but like, I don't know. I like the ball in my best player's hands. And in order to have him in the opportunity to take advantage of that, you have to have guys on the court that cannot be ignored. It's similar to what they were dealing with Ben Simmons, right? Like, when Ben Simmons spiraled out in Philadelphia in that Hawks series 2 years ago, It was because he didn't have to be guarded. The Hawks did not put anybody on him. And once he passed out of that dunk, that was the end of him in Philly, man. So we need players that can play and do a lot of
Yeah.
different. We need versatile players, is what I'm trying to say around Embiid, and that does speak to Embiid's inefficiencies. I will say that out plainly. He struggles as a playmaker. He struggles in the big moments, so you need guys around him that can counteract that.
Yeah. Also, Paul Reed could be a lob threat as well. So yeah,
That's a yeah.
with
They
the
need
PJ Tucker,
they need height in general, man. PJ's just he's a shorter power forward. Like, don't work.
it's sort of like when you mentioned Robert Williams basically playing free safety off of PJ. Like he just roaming around the paint,
Yeah,
waiting to help. It's like the Nuggets versus the Lakers when they decided to put Rui on Jokic, and then they just had AD roaming around the paint because
yeah,
Aaron Gordon wasn't making them pay. Well, he actually started making them pay, so they had to make
yeah.
adjustments. So yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. But moving on, what is one of your biggest concerns or ultimate concern heading into this season?
Yeah, so one of my biggest concerns, one is the wing play, which I mentioned earlier, just the starting wing play. Like Tobias Harris, he guarded the three well, but then we had a lack somewhere else, right? Somebody else wasn't able to be guarded. And sometimes with PJ Tucker, it was just a height thing. Like we just did not have enough height in our starting lineup. When you're working with PJ Tucker, who I believe is around 6'7", you got Tobias Harris around 6'7", 6'8". And then you move into Harden, who's 6'5", Maxey around 6'2". So after Embiid, you had nobody over the height of like 6'8". And I feel like in certain matchups, especially in the East, when you're playing the Celtics, when you're playing the Bucks, these bigger lineups, you have to have somebody that can rebound and defend the four against these type of teams. And once we ran into that buzzsaw in Boston, you started to see that get exposed. I thought that's where Jalen McDaniels would have been able to help a little bit more last season. And then even coming into this season, I thought they would sign him back. But I think what ties into the wing position as the overall concern, athleticism. We need athleticism. We need guys that can dunk the ball. Like, I swear, bro, like last year, it was an anomaly to see somebody dunk the basketball for this team. Like, outside of Embiid, these guys don't dunk. Like, I've seen Tobias Harris get rim stuffed. I've seen James Harden, obviously, he just doesn't even try to dunk anymore. Maxey, he can dunk when he gets a fast break, but once again, he's a smaller guard. Like, he's not going to go up and dunk through contact. So, like, athleticism is something that I would like to see more of on this team. And to your point earlier, Paul Reed could be part of that equation to answer that. The other concern would then be what happens with James Harden. Like, is he just taking up empty space on the roster this season? Does PJ Tucker hold out, right? Like, does he play even though Harden's not playing? That's something to think about. But more importantly, does all of this result in Embiid requesting or demanding a trade out of Philadelphia? That is my major concern this season for sure.
Yeah. Well, to your point about the wings, one thing that the NBA or NBA teams has proven is that you can never go wrong with too many wings. Just when you look at the way the game's like translating as far as like more small ball lineups, like you mentioned, 6'8", 6'7" wings, you just can't go wrong with them. Like, especially if their skill set is so versatile, being able to shoot, being a lob threat, dunking the ball, being a point of attack defender, things like that. So,
because PJ's 6'7", but he's just not athletic, right? Like, he's not going to do any of that stuff that you just said. Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah, like he can guard. Don't get me wrong, he can guard your best player team to a certain extent, but he doesn't really bring much on the offensive end. So
yeah. D'Anthony Melton, you mentioned him earlier. The Harden. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you mentioned D'Anthony Melton earlier. He's another guy, right? He came in last offseason, and I thought he would add some of that dunking, like just exciting, because that's I know it's like glorified in most cases. You see these highlights on Twitter with dunks and stuff, but that stuff does get the team excited. It gets the fans riled up. It is valuable in a sense when it comes along with other things. So I thought D-Melt would be able to come in and maybe put a few on guys' heads last year, but he was dealing with
Yeah,
some back issues last season, so he lost a little bit of that athleticism. So hopefully get healthy this offseason. Maybe he can add to that as well.
yeah, for sure. Also to your point about Harden, like, does he come into training camp? Does PJ hold out? Like, it's just a lot of questions, and you want to keep Joel happy, you know.
Yeah.
This is Joel like ninth season or year 10, something like that.
I want to say it's his 9th season. Now that you said that, let me just double check here. I want to say it's year 9 though. No, actually, so it's actually year 8. So he's only in year 8 right now. He'll
Oh
be
wow.
he's 29 right now. So next year will be year 30. He'll have year 9. But yeah, this is year 8 for Joel.
Yeah,
Mind you, he
but
missed like the
you
first
know,
2
with
seasons with injury.
yeah, I remember that. But to Joel and the team, you know, you have championship aspirations, right?
Yeah,
Joel has never reached the conference finals, and
yeah,
you know the clock is ticking on that. So you know, some got to change here at some
yeah.
point. You know, is he going to want out or keep trusting the process, or what's going to happen here? We don't know. So only time
It's
will tell.
interesting.
But also, one last question:
Yeah.
did Shake Milton leave y'all?
He did, man. My man Sniper Shake. That's my guy, man. I actually love his game. He
Yeah,
went to the Minnesota Timberwolves though. He left in free agency, which fair enough, man. He just didn't get enough run with the Sixers. Like I think he
yeah,
should have
yeah.
got
He
more
did it,
playing
man. He
time.
did it. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
did
needed to
it.
go somewhere
That's
where he
another
could get
thing with Doc
opportunity.
Rivers. Yeah, for sure. Like with Doc, he's not get me wrong. He's one of the best coaches, you know, to ever coach. You know,
Yeah,
he won a ring back in '08 with the Celtics. You know, but sometimes the Docs can become like questionable in the sense of like the lineup he uses.
yeah,
It's like, man, why is Shake not playing? Like, what's going on here?
yeah,
Even though I understood, like you got Tyrese, Melton, and James, so it's kind of like a overabundance of guards. But you know,
yeah.
Melton can play, man. He can play.
Yeah, and he's a little bit taller than them too, so like you can move him around to get him some playing time. You know what I mean? And like maybe it's a night when D Melt's off, like he's not hitting from 3, then you let Shake get some run because he's a guy that can
All
score the
right.
ball. But nah, to your point about Doc, man, he was such a frustrating head coach. Like I don't blame everything on him, but I do look back in certain series, like against the Hawks 2 years ago. Feel like that was one of our closest moments to get into the conference finals. We take the Hawks to 7 games. You end up blowing a 3-2 series lead in that one. It's the Ben Simmons debacle, his meltdown. And my only question in that series, man, when we see the next 2 years of Tyrese Maxey, why did Tyrese Maxey not get any run in that series and any run that season? Like his rookie season, he was very limited to when it would be Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid maybe sitting out that night, and then Maxey would get some run. But outside of that, he was not getting playing time as a young player. And that's the thing with Doc Rivers. He does not trust young guys to the point where he'll let a guy that is being a full-on detractor on your team out there on the court just because he's a veteran, rather than giving somebody that maybe they do fail, but he doesn't even try it. Paul Reed falls into that, right? Paul Reed should have got more playing time last year. Jalen
Yeah, for sure.
McDaniels should have got more playing time last year down the stretch. He's
Yeah.
your most athletic wing on the roster. And Doc Rivers just would never, ever do it. Even James Harden came out and mentioned Doc Rivers is one of the reasons at first why he wanted out, which to that point, I
Yeah.
couldn't even blame Harden for that. So, like, it was time for Rivers to go, and I'm excited to get Nick Nurse in here, who's a little bit more creative and versatile with his lineups and his schemes. So I'm excited for that, man.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick Nurse could be a good coach for y'all. But to your point
I think
with the
so.
Doc Rivers, basically, you know, about the young guys not playing them,
Yeah.
we go through the same thing with Steve Kerr.
Steve
You
Kerr.
know,
Yeah.
at some point, when was going to get these? We draft these guys. These are lottery picks. You know, you just can't
Kaminga,
have them riding
Moody.
the bench. Yeah, Kaminga, Moses. You know, we had Wiseman. You know, we traded
Yeah.
Wiseman and Poole, but it's sad to see that Wiseman it didn't work out. But you know, the kid just had a misfortunate run. He kept getting injured. You know, he didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of basketball experience. If you don't notice, his college career got cut short. So the pandemic came, so it just was a lot of things going on. So yeah,
It's hard
I
when
get
you're
what
contending too. It's confusing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is.
Yeah. And the
For
Warriors,
sure.
they're a
And
team that's contending every single season. So I mean, you get it, but like when you look back on things, you're just like, man, like could Jonathan Kuminga have helped me against whoever y'all lost to in the playoffs this year? You know what I mean? Like, who was it that the Lakers? Y'all lost to the Lakers.
The Lakers.
Could Kuminga have helped y'all in that series against the Lakers? Could Moses Moody have helped y'all in that series against the Lakers? These are the things you look back on. Well, they didn't even get a chance, right? At least that's the way it was with Doc Rivers. But
yeah. Also now we on this with Tyrese Maxey. When he look around guys in his draft class, you seen LaMelo, Ant-Man, Tyrese Halliburton, Desmond Bain, all these guys getting the bag, and he looking around like, man, you seen Darren Moore come out, if I'm not mistaken, saying that he's not in a rush, or is it some similar like that, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, man. This is something. It's funny you brought this up because I forgot about this. But yeah, it was earlier in the offseason when Desmond Bain got that extension, Halliburton got that extension, monster extensions, right? Max extensions.
Monster getting
Maxey's just sitting here on the last year of his contract. And mind you, bro, like from a Philadelphia perspective, at least my fan perspective, like I know that there's a chance Embiid might be out of here in the next 2 years. Like, so when I'm looking for like the light at the end of the tunnel, Tyrese Maxey is that light at the end of the tunnel. Like he is the future of the Sixers. But then when you go and you do stuff like this, his agent's Rich Paul, that was also Ben Simmons' agent. Like you're just treading in water that you just do not want to be in right now. It's shark-infested water, and they're playing with the wrong guy, man. I would have just given him the money. Daryl Morey came out earlier this offseason, said he's not going to extend him this offseason. They'll give him they're planning to give him the max, but they're waiting to get to next offseason to let all of that cap space open up so they get 2 max slots in the free agency next year. But my whole thing with that, there is nobody in the free agency class. With all due respect to your guy, Klay Thompson, dude is going on 35 years old. He's about to be a free agent this upcoming offseason. He's probably the best free agent that's coming out. Maybe Pascal Siakam. I'll give him the credit where it's due. He's probably the best free agent of that class. He's not the greatest fit with the Sixers. Maybe they do go out and spend that money on him, but you have one more spot. Who are you spending that on? Like, I would rather spend that money on Tyrese Maxey than spend it on Klay Thompson at this point. Just an example from that free agency class that I'm speaking on.
Yeah, I get what you're coming from.
I just don't like playing around with the young guys. You know, the money matters and how you're valued matters. And I don't want Maxey to get this perception that, man, they're valuing these guys in the free agency class next year over me. Maybe if they strike out on them, then they'll come after me. Like, nah, I'm not a second option. So, like, that's what rubs me the wrong way. That's what has me a little worried in that situation. But I did hear, I don't know if this is true, I did hear that by Maxey waiting at least until like somewhere around the All-Star break to sign that extension, that he can get more money. So I did hear that there is a benefit for him as well by waiting, but what if he gets injured? You know what I mean? Like all of these things could happen that could go the wrong way. And then he doesn't get his money, and then he's not on the Sixers. So I don't like it at all, man.
Yeah, but to your point, I think if he do make an All-Star team or All-NBA, he does get more money. So I can see it from that standpoint. But also, you also want to get this deal done. You don't want to play around like Tyrese.
Exactly.
Maxey,
why do we want to pay him more money?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why is that a benefit for the Sixers?
You don't want to mess around with this. He's a, in my opinion, All-NBA, perennial All-Star caliber player. So, you want to get this deal done as quick as possible, because if he do leave, you just can't find a Tyrese Maxey, walking around anymore. So, yeah, you got to get this deal done for sure.
And that's the thing with Maxey, man. It's not even just his skill set and his presence on the court, but he's just a good kid too. You know what I mean? He's got the right head on his shoulders.
The right mindset. Sure,
yeah. Yeah, I love him as a player, man. Honestly, if I'm being completely, he's probably my favorite player on the Sixers. Mind you, Joel Embiid, he's always gonna have a place in my heart from the process. But just as far as like, the last few years of the disappointments in the playoffs from Embiid, the comments after the game 7 about his teammates, and these guys, are you talking about Maxey, who did help you? He was probably the
Yeah,
second best player in that series. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. That stuff rubs me the wrong way with Embiid lately. He needs to take a
yeah,
little bit more accountability. But
yeah, for
Maxey's
sure.
probably my favorite player.
Yeah, it rubbed me in the wrong way. I'm not even a Philadelphia fan. I'm a fan of the
Yeah,
game. And when he said that, I'm like, bro, PJ Tucker had a playoff career high in the first half. I
yeah,
cannot make this up in the first
yeah,
half. Like he
yeah.
didn't score much in a sense, he had 9 points, but
I
still,
think he had
like,
three threes in the first half, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's not on everybody else. When your MVP has like 17 points in game 7, Harden has like 9 points in game 7. It's not on the other guys. Like, it's on y'all. Like, y'all are the ones that are
When
leading
it's
the
all
way
said
for
and,
this team.
exactly. When it's all said and done, this is something that guys on Twitter gets into it about all the time. But when it's
Yeah,
all said and done, it's about your dudes to get the job done. Like look at
yeah,
the Miami Heat. A lot of
yeah.
guys was getting frustrated that Max Stress and Gabe Vincent and is it Caleb Martin or Cody?
Caleb Martin. Yeah,
Caleb
Caleb
Martin. Like I wouldn't say that they, you know, was trash, but they kind of slowed down. But
in
at the
the
same
in the
time, like
finals.
Jimmy, yeah, in the finals, but Jimmy and Bam the one making the top dollars. Bam, in my opinion, played
Exactly.
pretty good, but Jimmy could have played, way better than he did.
Way better.
But mind you, these are the guys making the top dollar. So here y'all are criticizing, Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin and Max Strasburg. Two of those guys are like on minimums. Like, what are we
It's
talking
it,
about here?
it's so weird to me how some players escape that like criticism. You know what I mean? Like the different like no don't mind you, Jimmy Butler has been much more successful than Joel Embiid in the playoffs. So to that point, I'm not gonna sit here and try to compare their situations, but it's funny how certain players can kind of escape the narratives that get just tossed around about most stars, right? But there's just certain players that kind of hover right outside of those narratives and those critiques. It's kind of weird. But that's why, I don't know how you feel about dialogue on Twitter regarding basketball, man. I feel like it's broken. It's just like a lot of like trolling all the time from one side or the other. It's just you never know when someone's being serious about what they're saying. And I think that's like the problem with the dialogue. That's why I like doing podcasts and talking to you face to face and like hearing your thoughts, because it's
Yeah,
hard to tell on Twitter, man, when somebody's like playing you or like just being funny or trolling or whatnot. So it's interesting in this day and age. But yeah, man,
yeah, for
playoff
sure. I
struggles are
don't
real.
really get into it. I don't get into it with those guys. Like you said, it's really trolls on there. Like they wake
Yeah.
up every day to troll you. So I don't even get into that. I just if I make a comment or something, I don't even respond. Like whatever, I read it and just keep on moving or whatever. But
Nah, I feel that.
moving
That's the
on,
way to
what
do
what
it.
what are you? Yeah, smart thing to do. What are you most excited to witness this season from the Sixers?
Yeah, it's somebody that we've been talking about a lot here, and that's Tyrese Maxey, man. I'm excited to see his jump without James Harden there. Like without James Harden having the ball in his hands full time. I want to see what the ball looks like in Maxey's hands, because I feel like there's a higher ceiling there if Maxey is who I think he is. And I think in this fourth year, third year jump, as far as actually getting playing time in the roster, right? His first year kind of just nullified that, right? He didn't play much. But the last 2 years plus this upcoming season, this is the season where I see him taking the biggest jump, maybe getting into all-star conversation. It's going to be tough in the East. There's a lot of really good guards in the East. So he's going to be competing with a lot of really, really high talent. But I think this is the year where he can jump into those conversations as an all-star. You mentioned all NBA, maybe not there yet, maybe not a top 15 player just yet. But I think you start to see those signs this season, which is what I'm really excited about. He had a moment in his career, is in his second year, where Ben Simmons was holding out and he got to run the show as the point guard. His assists were up, the
Yeah,
turnovers were down, the assist turnover ratio was great. And the scoring was up. He was up in the mid-20s during that span. So I think he can handle the responsibilities. I know there's a lot of people that don't believe it. They Harden is a great player. Like, he led the league in assists. I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to disrespect him, but I think there's room for Maxey to hold more responsibility in the offense specifically. And I'm excited to see that next season.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like he could definitely be an all-star in the Eastern Conference. When you look at him, I don't know if you could say a Jaylen Brown a wing or a guard, but you could say Maxey,
Depends,
him.
yeah.
It depends. Drew Holiday, he might be another all-star. Trae Young, maybe
Zach
DeJounte
LaVine.
Murray. Zach LaVine. So he definitely can make it. It just like depends on, I say, more so the team success. What seed are y'all in, and things like that. Because I feel like Tyrese can easily average 20. He just came off a season where he averaged like 22, right?
Yeah, 22
Yeah,
last
so he
season.
could definitely. Yeah, he could
On
definitely
efficient
average.
shooting too. He's one of the most efficient
Yeah,
shooters in the league.
he could definitely average more. I say. I always root for Tyrese. I'm not the tallest guy, but he a small, guard, 6'1". So I gotta root for my
Yeah.
guards, man. We
Yeah.
tend to get overlooked. We can't play in this league and things like that. So it's only right that I root for him. But he
Look, it
definitely gonna
goes
be
along with that
a
guy behind
cornerstone.
you, AI, right? The smaller guard, playing
Yeah,
with that tenacity.
yeah,
Yeah, I love it. I'm around 6 foot myself, so I went through that with hooping too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But lastly, what are the Sixers ceiling this upcoming season?
Sixers ceiling this upcoming season. As of right now, James Harden's situation included, I would say second round exit. I think that's they can get to the same spot that they got to this season. You get to the second round in the Eastern Conference, that's when you're going to face an elite team. I think they still have a caliber team that can get a 4 or 5 seed in the East. Like, right now, I would probably put them right behind the Heat. I would put them maybe around where the Cavaliers are in the Eastern Conference, that 4 to 5 seed. There's other teams that can take a leap, of course. I like the Pacers this year. I like the Toronto Raptors. I like the Atlanta Hawks. I like all of these teams. They could take a
Yeah,
jump. Who?
the Nets.
The Nets, yeah, with Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. I think Nick Claxton can get a lot better on that team.
Oh, yeah. Sure,
They have some talent there too. So there's these up and coming teams in the Eastern Conference that, if they improve, yeah, they could be better than the Sixers. I'm not going to say that they can't, but as of right now, I'd probably put the Sixers around the 4 or 5 seed, depending on how you look at them versus like the Cavaliers. But second round exit, I would say right now, if they do not replace James Harden, second round exit ceiling.
Yeah, like you said, but if they don't, like, I don't just see him like have the motivation to actually play. Like, he made it known he don't want to be here, and it's like, man, I'm just gonna show up to work and play how I want to play, and it's not fair to the team. These guys put in the hard work, and then here you are, you're not showing up to your best ability. You coming up short in moments that it matters the most. So yeah. The Sixers, it could be like a second round. Like you said, depends on if y'all
Depends
trade
on
him or
that first
not.
round
Who
matchup.
knows?
Yeah.
Yep, that's a key thing as well. Depending on who the first round is, because when y'all played the Nets, I gave them one game, but y'all got straight to it. Y'all got them out of here. Y'all got them out in 4 games. So yeah.
They were learning though. Like, it wasn't fair to the Nets because, like, that's McCall. Like, he got traded there mid-season. You know what I mean? I expect them to be a lot better next year as far as like playing together. I think that was a big thing for them. But yeah, depends on that first round matchup, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Nets. It's crazy how, like, when Kyrie and KD both got traded, like Claxton, he was in the Defense Player of the Year conversation, like, pretty much all season up until the both of them got traded, and he just fell out of it. I was like, man, that's wild. He's still a pretty good defender. He still got a lot of ways to go on the offensive end as well, being able to make free throws and being assertive more. But yeah, they should definitely be a better team this season. And the big question is Ben Simmons. how he gonna look. He
That's a
say
good
he's
point.
feeling much better, things like that. Like the organization is like the the clock is ticking from the
Yeah,
standpoint of like, okay, you're the highest paid player on our team, but you're not the best player. But Kerry
yeah,
Bridges is. So it's
yeah,
like, okay, what else? What are you going to bring to the team? You know, you know you're not going to be the guy, but what else are you going to bring to this team? So it'd
yeah.
be very interesting to see for sure.
Man, Ben Simmons, he's such an interesting topic. And most people that you meet from Philly, Sixers fans, they're gonna just totally discredit him. They're gonna say that he's a bad player, this and that. When his mind's into the game, and that's a big win, like big if his mind is into the game of basketball, if he's focused on basketball, he can be a top 25, top 30 player in the league. He's shown that at a very young age that he could do that. I don't know if he's mentally capable of it at this point with everything that has transpired. We'll certainly find out this year. But as far as him being like a good quality player, I think if he gets into shape, gets rid of all these back issues, if those things don't linger, he can be the player that they need, right? Like defense, facilitating, playmaking, right? They don't need him to necessarily score and get buckets on that team. Just need you to dunk, right? Like finish layups,
Yeah,
stuff like that around the rim. But
yeah, yeah.
nah, like he doesn't need to be the leading scorer on that team. And I think in that role, if he's willing to embrace that, he can be solid on the Nets. The Nets can be a really good team if Ben Simmons shows up.
Yeah, for sure. If he just come into training camp with the right mindset, he could
Exactly.
definitely this can be his comeback season. Shut all
Exactly.
the haters.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm still one of those guys. Like you said, you don't have to
He's
be
a good
like a
quality player.
yeah, he don't have to be like a scorer. Just dunk every damn thing.
Yeah,
but
dunk every. He's
he dunk
6'10". He's a
everything. He's
6'10"
6'10",
point
bro.
guard.
And if they still you play him at the one, that's a lot of mismatches. Like
That's a
clearly
mismatch. Yeah.
most ones not going to be guarding him, but you get the picture. He's six
And he
ten.
can guard 1 through 5, bro. Like that's the other side of it,
Yes, he
right?
can
Like
guard one to five.
defense. He was in the
Yeah,
defensive player of the year conversations just 2 years ago when he was on the Sixers. So like it's
yeah,
all there for him. Like the talent, the skill set, the body, the frame, it's all there for him to be successful. He's just gotta put that head together, get that head together, get the mind
yeah.
right.
Isn't he like a three-time All-Star already?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure 4-time All-Star. Like his first 3 to 4 seasons in the NBA with the Sixers, he was an All-Star level player and just kind of fell out of it, man. The Atlanta
All
series.
defensive, all defensive.
Yeah,
Like it's all there. Like I remember, like to your point, you said 2 years ago he was in the Defense Player of the Year conversation.
yeah.
I think they played the Jazz, and he took it very personal when they put Rudy Gobert on
Mitch.
him.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. No,
yeah, I
I
think
know
he
exactly what
dropped
you're
like
talking
a
about.
career high, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he did. No,
Yeah.
I know the game that you're talking about. It's right before All-Star break because there
Yes.
was this famous thing in Philly with Ben Simmons where right around the All-Star break, this man would turn his game on. Like in
Yeah.
January, that's when you see the best version of Ben Simmons because he's trying to get all them All-Star votes. So it was just like a running joke in Philly about that when he would turn up around All-Star break. I remember that game specifically though. He had like 40 in that game.
Yeah,
40
he
and
had
40.
he had 40. I was watching that game. He was killing Rudy Gobert. Like he just
Yeah.
couldn't do nothing about it. And
And then
also like
guarding D Mitch on the other end.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he say, I think it was the three guys, it was him, Rudy, and Draymond in the defense
Yeah.
player of the year conversation that year.
Yeah.
And he took it upon himself to say, well, Rudy, you gonna be the defense player of the year. I'm gonna show you why you're not. So and he went out there and he dropped a 40 piece. So hey,
He's got
also
something in there, man. He's
yeah,
got
he got
something in
something in
there.
there. I remember, I think it was before the pandemic started back in 2020. It was like a marquee matchup between the Sixers and the Clippers. Ben Simmons was going crazy. He was giving it to Kawhi. He was just
Oh
like
yeah.
practically running through him. I was
Yeah.
like, man, bro. He says he's skilled. Like it would be nice for him to add like a mid range or like a post
Yeah.
fade, but with that
Yeah.
right mentality up here, can't nobody stop you in that paint, bro. You
Yeah.
6'10", 240, strong as hell. Get down here, get to the rim, and a perfect example is two guys. from a shooting standpoint. You look at a
Yeah,
guy like Shaq, right? He wasn't the
yeah,
best free throw shooter, but you think that stopped him from being so dominant in the paint? No.
exactly,
He kept
exactly.
dunking everything. Like the hack of Shaq thing was the actual thing, but it still didn't stop him from being so dominant. And then with Brick
Exactly.
Lopez, you look at a guy like Brick Lopez. I don't know too much about him from his Brooklyn Nets days, but you see how he like expanded his game for the better of his career, being able to stretch
Yeah,
the floor and shoot the ball, right?
yeah,
That added like an extra 5, maybe 10 years to his career, being able to
yeah.
stretch the floor, things like that. Because he wasn't like a stretch big coming into the league.
That's such a
And
good
I look at
point.
a guy like Ben Simmons, I'm like, bro, if you can get some type of jump shot, like anything, bro. Like these
Yeah,
guys will respect you more. They will have to. Like they just can't, leave you open. Make them pay. Like I,
exactly.
I seen Ben shoot. Like, he got a nice jumper.
Yeah,
He can make them. It seems like so.
yeah.
They just got to instead that confidence in him. Say, hey man, you got the green light. Which Mikal Bridges came out on Paul George podcast, and I think he
Yeah,
was alluding to something like that.
yeah.
Hey man,
The
yeah,
only problem with that, the only problem with everything that we're discussing with Ben Simmons is that we have been saying that in Philadelphia for 5, 6 years now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, since this kid was 18, 19 years old
yeah,
coming
I
out of
get it.
LSU. You know what I mean? It's just been a recurring thing. Like Mikal Bridges saying that on Paul George's podcast. We all just look at that and we're like, yeah, we've been there. You know what I mean? Like we've been like
Yeah,
encourage him, get him, tell him that he's good at shooting, like tell him that you don't care if he shoots right and misses, like all of that. And it's like it only got worse over time. Like you got to the Atlanta series, and that's when you saw, when you're talking about Shaq didn't deter away from taking the ball and trying to dunk it every single time, even though he would go to the free throw line and miss. Ben Simmons got to the point where on offense, he did not want the ball in his hands because he didn't want to be able to get fouled. He didn't want to go to the free throw line and have all the attention on him while he misses free throws. So, like, I think that broke him mentally, and I just don't know if he ever got back from it. But it was long before that, the shooting, right? Like, you're wide open at the 3-point line. We've seen you at practice cash out 3-pointers. Shoot the ball. If you miss it, like who cares? Like
yeah,
look at all
who
these other
cares?
guys around the league that are missing, going 5 for 20 from the
Like,
field, and
bro,
it's like
exactly. Like you an
you
NBA player, bro. Who
let it
cares, bro?
fly. Like it makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, just shoot
Coming
it,
from
bro.
like my basketball history, man, I was not afraid to play. Like you go out there, the lights are on you. That's the point. Like you go out there to entertain and put on the court. So like I just never understood it. But I'm not one of these people that's like rooting on his downfall. I hope he figures it out. I don't like, like all the mental gymnastics that go along with hooping. It should just be as simple as hooping. But it's often not, right, with the entertainment industry. So it sucks, but hopefully he bounces back, whether that's in Brooklyn or wherever.
Yeah. To your point, yeah, I'm rooting for that guy. Like, you just see so many guys talking down on him, things like that.
Yeah.
But he just got to get it together up here, and I feel like things will slowly start to come. So I think
Yeah.
Joel, before he got traded, when he didn't want to be a part of the team anymore, he came out and said that they tried to build a team around Ben Simmons. So I was like, I wanted to ask you, was that actually true or what? Like,
So the big thing, man, and mind you, just to give you some perspective of where I was at, probably 3 years ago, I was actually on the, if you feel that this pair is not working between Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, trade Joel Embiid. Like I was in that camp probably 3.5 years ago, before Embiid ascended into this like MVP caliber player, like perennial MVP candidate over the last 2 to 3 seasons. I was actually in the camp of keep Ben Simmons. That is like your prototypical player these days, right? Lengthy, can guard 1 through 5, makes other players better. He facilitates, he defends, rebounds good. Sure, he doesn't score what you would like, but he was still averaging around 17, 18 points. It wasn't nothing crazy. Like, that was the guy I wanted to move forward, put like 4 shooters around this dude and just play run and gun basketball. Like, you could play small ball with him at the center, but just let him play point guard when he wants to, right? Make plays for everybody.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, I was under that mindset of the new NBA, where the NBA is headed towards, and thinking in that way. And then it kind of just shifted over time just with how good Embiid became. But to your point, the team, it's hard to say it was like built around Ben Simmons because, like I said, if it was built around Ben Simmons, I think you would build this fast pace, like high energy and sharp shooting surrounding cast for a Ben Simmons. Like Ben Simmons is a guy, he grabs the rebound, he's trying to take that on a break. Like he's trying to get to the other hoop as fast as he can so he can get an easy dunk, easy layup, whether that's for him or another player on his team. So I think him and like I hate comparing him to Draymond Green because Draymond just has this like mindset that nobody can really match. But if he could just get a little bit of Draymond's heart, I could see him playing a role like Draymond Green for the Golden State Warriors. Like a team built like that. Obviously, yeah, Steph and Klay Thompson, two of the best shooters of all time. They're not growing on trees. But like that model, that's what I mean by that. Like that model of 4 shooters and then one guy that facilitates, rebounds, defends. That would be ideal for Ben Simmons. So to that point, I do not think the team was ever built around Ben Simmons.
Yeah, but to your last point, that's the role I envisioned him when the Brooklyn Nets had KD and Kyrie.
Yeah,
I was like, man, like you look at he could do that, you know, dribble handoffs.
Yeah.
He don't really have to do much, just facilitating, being a great defender, you know, being in the dunker spot, you know, simple things. When you play with scorers like KD and Kyrie, they're going to make the game easy for you. So you really don't have to do as much opposed to when you was with Philly, you know, it was you and Joel. But also to your first point, I remember that because Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, All the Smoke, their podcast, they had, I think that it was a fan mailbag, and they asked them that question. And at the time, I think y'all had Al Horford, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
y'all had Al Horford. Y'all had just gave him the max, and I don't think things were just going as smooth. And they had gave their answer, and they was like, "Well, we'll keep Ben and trade Joel because we have Al Horford now." And when they said that, I was like, "Wait, what?" Like
crazy,
and then y'all
crazy.
Yeah, y'all ended up divorcing Al Horford. I think the following season, if I'm not mistaken, y'all shipped him to OKC. So I remember that for Danny Green, actually. Yeah, I remember Danny Green.
Yeah. Man, Al Horford, that contract, man. That was I think we signed Al Horford to a max and then maxed out Tobias Harris in like the same offseason.
Yes, I remember that because in the bubble, both of those guys were struggling. I remember that they wasn't playing to their best ability. And when Al Horford first signed that contract, I remember calling my guy. I was like, man, who is this guy agent, bro? This man deserves all the praise and credit, man, because he got Al Horford a max contract. Now, don't get me wrong. He was with the Celtics. They got put out, I think, in the second round to the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He was a good player at the time. He was good.
Yeah, he was a good player, but it's like, is he a max contract worthy at this point of his career? So...
See, and they gave out 2 of those type of deals in one offseason, like Tobias and Al Horford. Like, all due respect to both of them. But are they max contract players? Like,
it's tough. And then, like, okay, and this will be the last thing. Do you actually think the Sixers chose Tobias over Jimmy? Because this has been like a topic. Like, for some reason... Go back to the 2022 playoffs when the Heat put out the Sixers, and Jimmy is the ultimate troll, no lie. Joel is one hell of a troll, but Jimmy is a troll. And you know, he came out and said, Tobias Harris over me. Like, I just want to know, like, do you think that was that actually true or what?
I think for my own sanity, I have to believe that that's not true. Like, for me to stay sane, I have to believe that that's not true. Like, but in all reality, the reports that I've read coming out of Philadelphia about that situation were all saying that basically the crossroads didn't come necessarily from Tobias Harris and Jimmy, but between Jimmy and Brett Brown and Ben Simmons. Brett Brown wanted the team to be Ben Simmons' team. He wanted to run the offense through Ben Simmons. Jimmy Butler wanted things to be like it is in Miami. He wanted the offense to be run through him and Joel and working that way. He didn't like the coach, obviously, because the coach wanted Ben Simmons. So in reality, from what I have heard and read around Philadelphia, it seems like the Sixers picked Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler and not necessarily Tobias Harris. I think where the Tobias Harris thing comes into effect, obviously Jimmy's saying that after the game. I don't know. Maybe that is what happened, but it feels like Jimmy was traded before the Tobias thing actually played out. So it feels like Tobias Harris was like a second option. It's like, we lost Jimmy. We're trading him to Miami. We're just going to get whatever we can and Jay Rich back from Miami. And then we'll just go and give the max contract to Tobias because we have it. And we don't want to lose Tobias, right, after we just lost Jimmy. So we don't want to lose two players in one offseason of that caliber. But giving him the max, I think they overreacted to losing Jimmy in that sense. So for my sanity, I'm going to say no, I don't believe that. But it very well could be true given the amount of mistakes that this organization has made over the last few years. List them off to you. Markelle Fultz over Jason Tatum. I'm a Duke fan, so like that shit like burnt me to another level. Like, but to be fair, Markelle Fultz was the guy coming out, right? Like there was people out there that held him over Jason Tatum. Sixers were not alone in that thinking. But from my perspective, I knew Jason Tatum was going to be the guy. I knew he was going to be the player that he is today. And so watching us trade up to draft Markelle Fultz, give the Boston Celtics an extra first-round pick to go and get the guy they wanted anyways in Jason Tatum, that was malpractice. Then you drafted Mikal Bridges to this squad, 2020 or something like that, 2019 maybe. Drafted Mikal Bridges. Wow. Mom worked for the organization. His mom worked in the Sixers organization. This man went to Villanova. He lived in Philadelphia. And they traded him on draft night for Zaire Smith to the Phoenix Suns. That rubs me so wrong. Like, I just can't even get over that. But it just speaks to the mistakes that have been made over the years, specifically throughout the process era. You just can't go back and fix those. Like Mikal Bridges is exactly what this team needs. And you had him right in your hands and you traded him away. It's really malpractice, to say the least, man.
Yeah, you just refreshed my mind. Like I forgot about that. Like I was like, man, like
so many mistakes.
So many, like, damn, that's crazy, bro. But also, look at didn't they draft Nerlens Noel? Was he a high lottery pick?
Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor,
Michael Carter Williams. Like, man, bro, this is wild. This is wild,
right? And that's what I mean. You try, like, as a Sixers fan, bro. I'm an Eagles fan. I'm a Phillies fan. Like, those teams they're balling out right now. So, like, when I have to direct my attention to the Sixers right now, it's just it's really tough. But I will say this: every single year we get to the offseason, we come from the disappointment of the second round exit, and by the time the season starts, about quarter away through the season, the Sixers are playing well. We're right back in saying, oh, this is the year they're going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So, like, we buy in every single season. We fall for it every single season, and they always let us down, man. But that's what we're fans for, right? Like, you gotta buy in.
Yeah, to your point about buying in, it's the same thing with the Cowboys, right? Every year, those fans, I don't know what it is, but hey.
The Sixers are the Cowboys of the NBA. You heard it here first. The Sixers are the Cowboys of the NBA.
Yeah, but that's wild. I think didn't Michael Carter Williams, like his first game, was it like a triple-double or something like that?
He actually balled out his rookie season, bro. Like he played well in his rookie year, and then it kind of just floundered out.
Yeah, when he had that game, he drawed a lot of guys' attention. Same thing with Markelle Fultz. Like he didn't have the easiest, best career with the Sixers. Injuries and things happened. But once he got traded to Orlando, I knew it was only a matter of time before he started to figure things out, which he had. But same thing with injuries. He been kind of dealing with it, and it sucks to see because he's a pretty good player. He's coming to his own, being able to facilitate, being a
Yeah, in
scorer, things
Orlando.
like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but
like what
also,
Orlando's put together down there. Bro,
yeah,
I
for
actually
sure.
was looking it up because you brought it up. Michael Carter Williams, his rookie year, he actually won Rookie of the Year with the 76ers. He
Oh wow,
averaged 16.7 points per game, 6 assists, 6 rebounds in 70 games as a rookie in
that's
2014.
impressive.
So started out great,
Yeah,
downhill from there. Bro.
okay, good.
It's very similar to Ben Simmons. It's weird, man.
Yeah,
It's just weird. Something in the water.
yeah. Like imagine a Jason Tatum, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid trio. Like Jesus Christ, man. Oh my God. Who knows? Who knows? But
I
also,
think about it every day. I really do. I think about it every day.
yeah. But also to your point about when y'all first traded for Tobias at the
Yeah,
trade deadline back in 2019, I really liked that team. I said, man, they can actually take it out. Even though I'm a Warriors
yeah,
fan, like I'm always a fan of the game before any
yeah,
team, any player. That's just how I roll. But I was like,
yeah,
man, because you got Ben, JJ Redick, Tobias, Jimmy, Joel, like, man. And I think at the time, JJ Redick was averaging like 18 points a game.
yeah. He was balling,
Yeah,
especially beside
he was
Joel.
balling.
Those dribble handoffs were crazy with him and Joel, man.
Yes,
Like
I remember that. Like, it was wild, man.
it feels like that was the closest we got to get into the Eastern Conference
Yeah,
Finals and then ultimately get into the finals because like you saw Kawhi that year, though, man. Y'all ran into him in the finals, actually. So
yeah.
yeah, y'all did see it. I think that was the year KD got injured. Like all
Yeah,
the
Katie, yeah,
injuries
he
just
tore his
piled up for the
Achilles.
Warriors.
Yeah, Clay
Yeah,
tore his ACL. So you
Kawhi
know,
went supernova or some shit. Like it was ridiculous what he did in that postseason run, man.
yeah,
So it's like I
he
look
was.
back on it and it's like I guess it's okay. You lost to Kawhi, but like that shot that rolled around the rim, he traveled on that shot too. Like, don't ever forget that. He traveled. He
Right.
took like 4 steps before he took that corner three. And that looking back, that's the closest we ever got, man. Because yeah, we took Boston to 7 games this year, right? And that was fine, but we got blew out in game 7. That game
Yeah,
7 right there, that one hurt.
yeah, that one, yeah, for sure. I think that, like, I watched that whole game, like, just thinking about it, I remember exactly where I was when Kawhi hit that shot. I couldn't believe
Yeah,
it, like, the
yeah.
way it just, like, you know, I was like, man, then you see Joel Embiid reaction.
Crying.
It's
Yeah.
like, and then a lot of guys were like trolling him. You know, he was crying and things
But
like
see, I
that. But
like that from Embiid. I feel like he doesn't. He's not like that anymore, and that's part of the issue. Like his emotions. Like after we lost to Boston this year, he like went up to Jason Tatum. And mind you, I'm all like I'm not. I don't want him to go up and punch Jason Tatum in the face or nothing. Like, but like I don't need to see Joel Embiid all smiles and giggling with Jason Tatum after we are exiting the playoffs for like the 5th consecutive year in the second round. Like I don't
oh my
need to see
god,
all that friendly and camaraderie behavior
right,
between those two. Like that rubbed me the wrong way. When you see him against Toronto just bawling his eyes out, how much he cared in that moment, just makes me wonder if like maybe he takes a step back from the game in a sense and is like, man, let me not get all worked up. We're gonna win, we're gonna lose, and this like I don't want it to be like that. I want him to be worried about his legacy and worried about winning. And I kind of feel like he's kind of moved off of that.
yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. Like when the Lakers put us out, and Draymond, he was our buddy with LeBron. I'm like, bro, really, man? Like, come on, man. You
Yeah.
smiling and Steph on the bench with the towel over his head. Like, what are we doing here, man?
I hate the
Like,
way
it
Draymond be
just stuff
riding
like that.
LeBron's coattail, bro. I hate the way Draymond
Oh
be
my god,
co-signing LeBron. I hate that shit. I heard he was
man.
like out
I
at a
don't know.
club recently. Have you heard about this story where he like slapped somebody that was bothering LeBron?
I don't think so. I don't think I heard that
They
one.
were at like a restaurant and there was this guy, it was like a waiter or something that kept bothering LeBron or like, trolling him. And so
Yeah.
Draymond apparently like backhanded this waiter and like got arrested or some stuff. Look it up after we get off of here. You'll see what I'm talking about because it
Wow.
was like a bigger story recently. I don't know how true it is, but look it up. You'll find it.
Yeah. But that's wild though. But I don't like with Draymond and LeBron. Like I think this kind of happened because Draymond signed with Rich Paul, Clutch
Yeah,
Sports. I think their relationship got close, from there because if you look back before then, no doubt about it, battling against each other in the NBA Finals, things like that. 2016, him and LeBron got into it. Draymond got suspended.
yeah,
Things like that. So I'm like, man, where did this close friendship come from? Now, don't get me wrong. I know the NBA is a brotherhood. You stick together, things like that. But sometimes I feel like, and it just could be me, I feel like he can sometimes run to LeBron aid before he runs to Steph. And I'm like, what are we doing here, man? Like, it's just kind of crazy in the sense of, this buddiness. Like Draymond,
yeah.
everybody know how he is. He play hard. He always yelling. When we played the Kings, that's what he was doing. I didn't see much of that in the Lakers series. So, hey.
Man, no, I feel you, man. It's you just don't want to see it. Like it's okay, like outside of like that game, right? Like when you're getting eliminated from the playoffs, but like when it goes off the court, that's when that's when it's okay. But like when it's on the court, I just don't like that after a tough loss in the playoffs, man. I saw that too whenever Steph had the towel over his head and he was very disappointed, but Draymond's buddy ended up. I looked up
Yeah.
that story about Draymond though. It's actually not true. So wanted to correct myself on it. It came from a parody account on Twitter, so that's my bad. So he did
Okay.
not backhand a bartender that said something disrespectful from LeBron. Somebody was trolling out there.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it, man. Great episode. Appreciate you for being a guest on the show, man. I'm definitely going to look to come onto yours. We just got to set it up and let the viewers know. But I'm definitely going to put the link to your channels in this video. And yeah, man, appreciate you for coming on, man. Much love and keep up the great work.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. Anytime you need me again, you want to hit it off before the season starts, whatever the case may be. We can talk full NBA. We can talk Sixers, whatever you want. It was a pleasure. You let me come on the show here. Got top 10 centers in the NBA. So me and Zach Noble, if you know him from Ball Is Life, me and him broke down our top 10 centers in the NBA. That'll be out later tonight. But nonetheless, thank you again for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Dub Nation, lock in.
Lights out.
Winning another championship is going to take everything.
We know what it takes. That's mental toughness.
Until someone knocks us off, we'll never think differently.